Welcome, everyone. My name is Carmen Mazzara, and I serve as Executive Director of APSIA, the Association of Professional Schools of International Affairs. I'm delighted to welcome you all to this webinar, Helping Students Prepare for a Global Marketplace, that's part of APSIA's broader work to share the field of international affairs and broader global careers with advisors around the world. I'm joined today by my colleague Stephanie Jackson of the Nunn School for International Affairs at Georgia Tech University. And Stephanie will begin by walking through some of her work and experience in the grind on the front lines of dealing with students. And then I'll have the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about how you can best advise your students who may be thinking about graduate school. And then we'll share some other tips and resources, and then the floor is yours. As we go through the presentation, if you have any questions, something that doesn't make sense, please feel free to type it in that chat box on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll be sure to take questions as we go. And so with that, I'm happy to turn the floor over to Stephanie to share her great wisdom with the rest of us.
Thank you so much, Carmen, and hello to everyone out there. I am glad to be here with you to talk about how we can work to help our students better prepare for a global workplace. So just as a bit of background, I have been here at the Nunn School at Georgia Tech in Atlanta for about 14 years now. I started here as what is known as the International Plan Advisor. The International Plan is a program that is designed to build international competence within our undergraduate degrees here at Georgia Tech. So currently my role is Assistant Director of Advising and Professional Development, which means that I work with undergraduate students, both our majors and our minors, as well as graduate students on their career development. My educational background is that I have an undergraduate degree in political science and a graduate degree in international development studies. So I want to get a sense of who's here in the room today before I get started. So I'm going to put up a little survey and ask you to just respond to it. Let me get this going. If you could tell me, and Carmen, what is your primary advising role? Just so we'll have sense. Who's in the room? Give you about another minute or so to just answer the question. See who's here. So a good number of academic advisors, people who are involved in career services, national fellowships advisor, okay. People who are doing pre-professional advising, academic support, international education, admissions, okay. The McNair program, Washington program advisor, great, great. Okay, just a few more seconds. Okay. So I see that we have a range of different folks here on the chat. And so that's good to know who is in my audience. Thank you for responding to that and letting us know who's there. So let me get back to my presentation. So to get started, in our various roles, whichever units or departments that we're in, what we hear from our students and what they're talking about is what we're talking about with our students. In our advising conversations, what topics or interests do our students express passion around? Some of the more common areas include an interest in travel, language and culture. That could be study abroad. Oops, I'm sorry, you don't see my screen? Let me go back to that. There you go. Can you see the screen now? Thank you. Okay, so an interest in travel, culture, language. This could be study abroad, learning or developing language proficiency, to engage with other cultures and manners of doing business, working abroad, etc. Some students are interested in what's called tackling big problems. So that is responding to and solving societal ills through practical and policy efforts. Other students are interested in politics and government. So that could be anything from representing constituencies, representing government. It could be diplomacy, intelligence, so local, state, federal opportunities as well. So a recent graduate of our master's program held an internship with the Office of the President of Poland. This opportunity came about through a partnership with General Electric for a cohort of about 20 students from the United States and Poland to participate in a political, economic, and cultural exchange. He stated that he wanted to do this exchange because, quote, I was a Chinese major in undergrad. In grad school, I got a bit interested in security issues and European security, and this was to build on a previous experience in Germany to learn about transatlantic security cooperation. So learning about the United States and the European Union security policy was the draw. Learning about the theories of international relations and why countries do what they do really opened my mind and was influential in my being interested in Poland and helped make the case for my participation in this exchange. Other areas of interest that students talk about might be debate and argue. So these are students who talk about competing philosophies, evolving ideologies, law and constitutional issues. They may have an interest in service, in helping people. So this could be volunteering or teaching abroad, service learning, and how all of this translate into social impact. They may have a desire to see social change. This might be human rights that they're interested in, or human trafficking, or social justice movements and forms of other forms of social activism. And there's also folks who I like to call I like this, but not that. So these are people who are curious, they're explorers with a passion to innovate, driven by that prospect of global opportunity. One of our alumni says, quote, I learned how to identify, analyze, and solve problems, to think critically, analytically, and creatively. This has served me well, especially working on corporate investment banking transactions, as well as forays into internet startups, real estate, and other business ventures. So essentially, there are a variety of different interests that our students may come to us with. And as advisors, we want to guide them in channeling these into potential careers. And regardless of the majors they may have selected, all of these interests can have a global component and can all be explored in the framework of a global workplace. So most students are very surprised at the flexibility that comes with any major. For instance, a degree in engineering can lead to a career in finance, while a history degree can lead to a job in the healthcare field. Often we are asked, what can I do with this major? And we talk with our students about the connection between majors and career choices. There are some straight lines from one major to one particular career, particularly with technical degrees in STEM-related fields, but employers increasingly see candidates and do not often use major as a criterion for accepting applications. Often, internships and full-time positions for undergraduates are posted are open to all majors or to a diverse range of majors. So that all said, what we're looking at here is a list of majors, interests, and careers with a variety of examples of the different positions or jobs and the different majors and interests that can lead to those particular careers. So I want to point out the range of disciplines here. There are majors in the humanities, in the social sciences, as well as in the sciences and engineering fields. Many careers, even down to the local level, can have an international component to them. So one example I want to share is someone who graduated from our graduate program with a master's degree in international relations, and she works for the city of Atlanta. That is surely considered a local job. Her role as Deputy Director of the Office of International Affairs means that she is charged with maintaining the city's relationships with the international community and promoting international trade opportunities, encouraging foreign direct investment, and raising the global profile of the city of Atlanta. So while her job is local, it is inherently international with a global impact. And all of these careers listed can be obtained with a degree or training in international relations. A couple of other examples of untraditional paths to internationally oriented careers. I have another graduate of our master's program who works in public affairs and communications for the the International Government Relations Office at Coca-Cola here in Atlanta. He obtained this position after a stint as an intern in their public affairs department. But before he got to Koch, he was an intern at the Carter Center. And before he started our graduate program, he had earned his undergraduate degree in music education and was actually a music teacher and a program director in Atlanta area schools for about 6 years. He had lived abroad in Thailand and he had developed some foreign language proficiency. And he also served as a volunteer with some non-governmental organizations in Mexico, Uganda, and Botswana. And it was through all of these different experiences that he developed a skill set in management, communication, independent and collaborative work, as well as intercultural and interpersonal skill development. He says, quote, I use my graduate school experience daily, evaluating business environments, tracking socio-political events and the impact that they have on our business, understanding the various political processes around the world, and understanding how our business has adapted to the varied countries we are a part of are all elements of my job where I use the skills and knowledge I gained at the Nunn School. Another example for a student that finished from our undergraduate program but is now pursuing a master's in public policy through the National Science Foundation Cyber Corps Scholarship for Service. This program recruits students that are interested in cybersecurity and working for the public sector. This is an opportunity for liberal arts students that have designs on working for the government to use their capabilities in cybersecurity, as that is currently an area of need for the federal government. So she stated that she was super nervous because she didn't have this big passion for computer science. And it took her professor explaining how cybersecurity specifically, and especially international cybersecurity policy, had great implications for many issues that she is passionate about, like human trafficking, drug trafficking, and terrorism. With cyberspace being one of the biggest domains for security issues, she finds that even as a liberal arts student, she can use her technical skill and passion to help truly solve problems she cares about the most. And lastly, she noted that thinking that pursuing something cybersecurity related would pigeonhole her or prevent her from being able to do other things. She states, but technology is moving forward and being a part of this technical field has really helped me have more opportunity and has not hindered me, nor my passion for security, travel, and international affairs. And if I can plug an APSIA resource here to share with your students, the career directors at APSIA institutions, along with the APSIA staff, have curated something we call the International Career Guide, which can be viewed on the APSIA website. It breaks down career options in the global workplace by sector and subject area. Carmen just shared the link to the guide in the chat box, so you can certainly bookmark that to share with your students. Each section provides a brief description as well as a sample of employers, tips to gaining employment in that particular sector, and key skill sets and experiences to have to make you competitive in that field. So please do take a look at that on the APSIA website and please make it available to your students. So studying a single discipline is no longer enough. An interdisciplinary, intercultural, multilingual education is becoming necessary to advance in this global workplace. An interdisciplinary field, international affairs, prepares students for a variety of different career paths. So as you see listed here, communications, media, public relations, business and consulting, development and conflict resolution, energy and the environment, education, human rights and law, science and technology, security and intelligence are just some of the more prevalent career paths. And while historically it is thought that international relations is equal to government, and that's quite true that a majority of my students, when they begin our undergraduate program, they all want to work for the State Department or for the United Nations. But according to APSIA, approximately 42 of our class of 2018 graduates, their first destination landed them in the private sector. It's the largest employer of our graduates, followed then by the government or public sector at 33%, and then the nonprofit NGO sector at 20%, and then multilateral organizations at less than 5%. So government opportunities include the U.S. Department of State, the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, and the intelligence community, plus agriculture, commerce, the Centers for Disease Control, education, energy, transportation, treasury, etc. So interest in government service should not exclude local government opportunities either, state and national offices, as I gave that example earlier. Government can even mean working for a king. So there are opportunities to work for a royal family or kingdoms of other nations, as well as the consular offices and embassies of other countries. Thinking about nonprofits, those include organizations such as the American Bar Association, CARE, Catholic Relief Services, the Gates Foundation, Human Rights Watch, Habitat for Humanity, the United Nations Foundation, and other non-governmental organizations and foundations around the world. For-profit companies include Anheuser-Busch, Bank of America, Coke, Deloitte, Fleischmann Hillard, GE, Google, Home Depot, PNC, and the Walt Disney Company. Examples of intergovernmental and multilateral organizations include the World Bank, the United Nations, OPEC, the Inter-American Development Bank, the Organization of American States, the European Union, NATO, etc. And then other organizations. There are some students who go on to start their own companies. Entrepreneurship is certainly growing. They may start travel or tourism companies, global health, sanitation programs, global commerce and technology initiatives, and the like. So the world is open to our students, and there are particular skills that are necessary for them to find success in the global workplace. I want to share this brief clip from our podcast series of an employer that's discussing skill sets for interns and new employees.
You know, a lot of the harder skill sets, when I say hard, I mean hard skills versus soft skills. Those are things that if you want to learn something with the databases or you want to become more proficient in putting presentations together, that's always opportunity that we can provide to the student. But for us, you know, it's really great when we come across someone that has that desire to learn and is, you know, willing and open to try different tasks and responsibilities, because you know, if we have someone that's fully comfortable that can, you know, get on the phone and talk to a company, we can give them that opportunity, and that's very helpful for us.
So there is a lot of conversation about skills, particularly the skill set of younger workers and being prepared for today's global workplace, especially among employers and career services offices around this country. The National Association of Colleges and Employers, which is known as NACE, refers to this as career readiness, or the competencies that prepare college graduates for successful transition to the workplace. Anecdotally, I can tell you that employers that I talk to emphasize the importance of soft skills as key to hiring and then eventual success and promotion on a job. That's communication, teamwork, problem-solving orientation, emotional intelligence, and these are the key abilities that they're screening for, and it's imperative that we help our students find ways to develop these skills throughout their college careers. For global careers, I'd like to point out a few that can give them an edge in the workplace. So professional experience, internships, local, online, national, international, the exposure and experience in the world of work to understand what it is like to work in a given industry, organization, or a particular job. We want them to be able to demonstrate their personal accountability and effective work habits. So that's punctuality, working productively with others, and the time, workload management, and ability also to learn from mistakes. Communication skills. So that's having excellent written and verbal communication skills, being able to write in various forms, be it briefing papers or memos, research papers, reports, white papers, and the like. Also to have strong public speaking and presentation abilities. Proficiency in more than one language, or an aptitude for learning additional languages. This is tied to global and intercultural fluency and the ability to value, respect, and learn from diverse perspectives. Having analytical and quantitative skills. This is an ability to obtain, interpret, and use knowledge, facts, and data for human capital and other business elements. So this includes critical thinking and problem solving, to the ability to use sound reasoning to analyze issues, make decisions, and overcome problems. Technical skills is really about leveraging existing digital technologies and the adaptability to new and emerging technologies in an ethical and efficient way to solve problems, to complete tasks, and to accomplish goals. So this can include skills in graphic design, in social media, in data analysis, in coding and computer programming, in geographic information systems, modeling and simulation, etc. Also, understanding project management. This includes leveraging their strengths and their skills to organize, to prioritize, and to delegate. It also entails building collaborative relationships and to work well within a team structure. In the stages of managing a project or a program, so they don't necessarily need to start their career with a PMP certification, but they should be familiar with the initiation, planning, execution and launch, and the control and track delivery close elements of a project. Then also lastly, networking to create a network, to build their own personal advisory board. So they should have mentors and coaches and peers that they can bounce ideas with, to know some industry contacts and insiders, to develop relationship building habits that build their own network, which can be key to their own career management. These are what I consider the critical skills and abilities that we should be advising our students to learn. So next, I will share ways students can go about learning these skills. So we should encourage our students to what? Get internships. Having that hands-on experience, which can be gained during college, is the most critical hiring variable. The more internship experience they have gained, the better. Of course, we don't want that to interfere with them completing their degrees. However, if they can get 2 or even 3 internships done, that will make them even more competitive for more full-time internships. To get published, this is a way to showcase their excellent communication skills, both verbal and written. There are a lot of student-run academic and undergraduate journals out there. So there's also research opportunities with faculty that can lead to being published. Some social media outlets may also provide opportunities. What recruiters are looking for are strong writing skills, and that can be developed through being published. So for them to develop skill in writing clear, concise communications is something that comes with practice. So being published can contribute to that brand. Students can showcase their knowledge in a particular area, and that may be of interest to a company. So for example, we have another graduate of our graduate program who developed an interest in fair trade and sustainable investment. She began to flesh out this interest through papers and assignments in her courses, and she did considerable research with faculty, and she did this to get published. From that, she was able to refer back to her portfolio of writing and work in this area during her interviews as a Presidential Management Fellows finalist, and she was offered a PMF position with the Department of Commerce in the International Trade Administration. Other ways is to pursue a minor or certificate or even a double major. Students should be encouraged to take courses outside of the primary major to develop a concentration. Employers can view this as this additional breadth as a benefit. So if a student is studying an engineering or a technical discipline, a minor in business or a foreign language would be attractive for global employers. Or if a student is studying the liberal arts, a minor in business or communications and digital media would be an attractive specialization. Increasingly, employers are looking for candidates that stand out. So having a specialization is one manner of doing so. Study abroad, travel abroad, learn a language. There are fellowship programs that offer funding for international experiences, both study and intern opportunities, and they may pay for graduate school or for professional internship or traineeship experiences with government offices or with non-governmental offices, and these could provide valuable benefits and bring prestige to one's resume. Encourage them to lead something. So this could be an executive board level, like a president or a director or a committee lead. Have some sort of leadership activity that is preferred over just membership in an organization. So, of course, extracurricular activity is looked favorably upon, but having evidence of the ability to work well in teams, manage others, to manage budgets, programs, and time is something that will benefit them. Also, they should find ways to get involved in international or global themed events and organizations both on and off campus. So they can participate in maybe International Education Week, or maybe they can join the Campus Model United Nations program, or they can apply for a traineeship with ISIC or ISDE, or they can join a campus club on culture and language, or another topic of interest like sustainability or human rights. Also, they can join professional organizations and they can take advantage of the student rate and the young professionals networks. Encourage them to network with alumni, have them talk to professors and make connections. These are ways to practice polishing those interpersonal skills. So as advisors, our role is to guide students and to help them make wise choices to maximize their time in college. In working with our undergraduates, there's a timeline to this. Not many of them are able to secure internships in their first year of school, but they may be able to study abroad or they may be able to start a new language. So let's work with them to craft a timeline to build upon skills and assess their career readiness throughout their years of college. As they begin to take coursework and as they develop an interest in a particular minor or begin to formulate interest in a different research topic, they can cover that throughout their different courses. And in fact, they are developing an expertise. They can join organizations early on as a member and then take on increasing responsibility and then use that experience to build connections and network with other leaders and organizations. Then also as they begin to search and then interview for internships, they have experiences that they can talk about: leadership, language, research, study abroad, etc. And with additional internships to become more competitive for full-time positions. So yes, our immediate goal is to prepare students for that first job out of school. Yet, we also want to equip them with helpful strategies to navigate upward in this increasingly competitive global market. And that could include graduate school as a strategy. If not right after finishing the undergraduate degree, perhaps after a few years of work. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Carmen, who can talk to us more about if the decision is made to pursue an international relations degree, how we should proceed.
Thank you, Stephanie, so much for all of those personal stories about the students you've worked with, as well as some great tips and things to help focus ourselves and students as we try to help them navigate this space.
Sure.
As a quick reminder, if you have questions as we go through or at any time, please feel free to put them in that chat box. And we will be able to share the slides afterwards, as well as a recording of this presentation. So if you're furiously taking notes to capture all of Stephanie's wisdom, you can sit back and relax just a little bit. So as Stephanie mentioned, we have some strategies also to help you as you think about counseling your students about further education. And one of the common questions that we hear certainly is, how do I discern which program is the right fit for me? And my mother and my father and my grandparents want me to go one way, but I don't know what to do that's going to set me up for professional success in this interdisciplinary world that we live in. So we recommend that students ask themselves 5 questions. And this can be a great exercise to do with students as you help them discern what general path they want to go down. The first one we suggest is, what will they study? Is it a really structured program that's highly prescriptive and is going to tell the students each class they're going to take each year? And is that the way they want to go? Are they looking for something that gives very specific, clear parameters on what kinds of coursework they're going to do? Are they trying to marry together lots of different interests and a broad range of pursuits within one master's degree program? If so, they're going to need a really flexible structure that might have a core to it, but is going to let them bring together these different elements within their electives. So if you have a student who's really got this breadth of perspective, a highly prescriptive program isn't really going to make sense. So walking them through, helping them see where the academic structure can be found, and from there unpacking what exactly it is that they're going to be studying, what skills they're going to be getting, and what the programs mean, even far beyond just what the name of a particular program might be. Helping the students think about their qualifications. 99.9% of schools are going to publish their admissions criteria online. So if a student has their heart set on a particular institution, making sure that they're set up for success. Do they have the prerequisite courses? Do they have the prerequisite language skills, work experience, perhaps getting them to take a few years off between undergraduate and graduate study, having them understand how they fall on the competitiveness factor. Most schools are going to publish average scores, average GPA or GRE. So having that student understand which programs are a bit of a stretch, what's really within their wheelhouse, and perhaps where they're going to be a highly competitive candidate relative to some of the other average scores and average students that are in that program. So helping that be also part of their discernment process and having them understand where they fall within that broader spectrum of qualifications. An aspect that a lot of students miss has nothing to do necessarily with academics. Do they want to be in that particular city? If you have a student who loves a big city and the hustle and the bustle, one of our schools in College Station, Texas, lovely as it may be, I really enjoyed my time there, but is not a major metropolis. So if a student really has to be in that kind of environment and wants to be in that big city, College Station may not work for them. And vice versa. If a student hates big city life, doesn't want to be a part of that, a school, any school in Paris or Tokyo or New York or DC may similarly be not the right fit. So reminding them that their whole life will not solely be academics, and they have to have those other aspects of the living environment wrapped into their discernment process can be an important and eye-opening moment that you share with them, because a lot of them just assume, I can only go to New York, I can only go to DC, I can only go to London. But there might be a lot of other places that are going to be a good fit for them that aren't one of those major cities. Affordability obviously is a huge issue these days. And there's lots of ways that students can pay for school, but getting them to have that financial discernment at the same time as having academic discernment is also really important. The sets of planning have to happen simultaneously. Students also need to be aware that a lot of schools have financial aid deadlines or deadlines to compete for financial aid that are different from their general application deadline. So making sure that they are aware, even though yes, the responsibility is on them, but making sure that they understand when the financial aid deadlines are, all of the different ways besides borrowing more money from a bank that are possible for financial aid, and all of this different planning that goes into the financial component of paying for graduate school. As another cheap plug for the APSIA website, and I'll share this link with you all later, we do have a directory of some fellowships and scholarships on our website that might help students pay for lots of different things, including graduate school, and might also broaden their perspective about the sorts of resources they can have access to. But I would argue the most important question on this list is the last one. What is the professional fit? How can you help students think about all of those different careers that Stephanie talked about, all of those different majors and emphases and internships and interests that can be brought together within a professional field, and then what sorts of jobs and skills and experiences are required for success in that field more broadly. I've yet to find a student who knows exactly what they want to do 10 minutes after graduation. They may talk like they do, but once you push on that a little bit, you can see that it can sometimes be a little squishier than they would originally present it to you. So what are the broader trends, the broader skills, the broader components that they need? And once they have a sense of those, then they can measure it against the academic program. Then they can measure it against the professional services and opportunities a school provides, and use that measuring stick as a way to figure out which program is it that's really going to deliver the kinds of things that they need. So having students go through this exercise of asking themselves these 5 questions can help to really channel their interests, as they can sometimes feel overwhelmed by all the marketing materials and all the websites and all of the advice that they might be getting. So as you'll see on the next slide, students also need to begin to prepare the nuts and bolts of an application. We stress to them, and I encourage you all to do so as well, that every school is going to ask for something different. So they're going to need some way of keeping track of all the different pieces that go to each individual program. But on the whole, the kinds of things most schools ask for are an application form and an application fee. So that should also be built into a student's planning. A CV or a resume, and they're different, as I'm sure all of our colleagues, in particular on the career services side, are aware. They're going to need transcripts from each institution. So for those of you who are counseling students who have studied abroad, making sure that they're aware, oh, if I directly enrolled at a university, I might need my transcripts from that institution someday. So I at least need to keep track of how I will get them later on. Because this is the kind of thing that can often trip students up, particularly at the last minute, when they realize they have to call Spain to get that transcript from 3 years ago when they directly enrolled in an institution. A lot of schools are going to ask for standardized tests. but a lot of schools are moving away from them. So making sure students are prepared to either take the test, knowing when the deadlines are mentally geared up for it, or if that just terrifies the heck out of one of your students, perhaps advising them to move towards some of the schools that are now GRE optional or aren't asking for them at all. And so understanding the role of the GRE within the application process and how that's going to affect your students' sense of self and ability to apply for programs. So personal statements and supplemental essays are the critical time for a student to shine. And we'll talk in a minute about some advice you can give them about how to put those pieces together. But this is really the first time your student gets to tell their story. It's also their first writing sample. So helping them think through some of those distinct elements that are going to make their essays stand out, as well as encouraging them not to do stupid stuff like spell things wrong or inflate their narrative in some way, can be some really practical tips you can give them that will help separate them from students who didn't get that advice and try to tell you this whole narrative that sort of begins with Gandhi and ends with the Pope and tries to cover all the ground in between. We also are probably going to need 2 or 3 letters of recommendation, depending on the program. So advising them to think about their professors with whom they want to stay in contact over the years. There's a faculty member that's really resonated with them. What are some strategies they can use to keep in touch with that person? So if in 2 or 3 years down the line, they need that letter of recommendation, they're not reconnecting with that faculty member from a cold place. And we can talk about that if you find that useful. Also, as they have all these internships and great experiences, reminding them to stay in touch with their supervisors. Again, in case they need professional letters of recommendation, they don't have to do a cold call back. They've managed to stay in touch and keep that relationship generally warm so that when the time comes, that recommender is ready to produce a high quality letter for the student. And then particularly for non-US students who want to study in the US, or for US students who want to study outside of the US, some sort of bank statement, some sort of financial record is going to be needed. So again, getting them thinking about these pieces now so that when the time comes, they know what the steps are and they know what they need to do in order to be ready to put together all of these different elements. Next slide, please. So I'm sure you all have talked to students about how best to tell their story and craft their narrative. But the advice that we give them is really to tell a very distinct story about their life, to talk about the things that happened in the past, work, volunteer, life experiences, particular projects they've worked on, all of those things about who they were that influence who they are today. This person who wants to go to graduate school or even apply for a particular position. So what was it about back then that informs who they are now? And who are they now? And what is it that they want to study? Why is it that they want to go to this particular graduate program at this particular time? So who were they? Who are they? And then who do they wish to be? How is this school, this program, this degree a springboard into that future version of themselves? So that narrative of who they were, who they are, and who they wish to be is really a distinct story that only your student can tell. And that way they can put together an independent essay that doesn't sound like the thousands and thousands of other essays that our admissions directors read. This is really a way to showcase what they can bring into the classroom, what life experiences they have to contribute, and how this particular element of their life's journey will be a critical turning point into their future profession of self. It doesn't mean that they necessarily have to have one specific job or one specific sector in mind, but there should be some reason that they want to master that particular topic at that particular program for that particular school. And the more that they can shape that narrative, tell that story, and show why they want that element, that program, the stronger and more compelling their case will be for that particular institution. So as you'll see on the next slide, schools really are looking at a holistic element when they come together to look at an application. They're going to want to see a student's aptitude for academic success. So that's why they want the transcripts. That's why they want the academic letters of recommendation. That's why they want to see a writing sample. Is that student going to succeed academically in this program? For our schools, as professional schools of international affairs, they also want to see the students' capability to succeed professionally. That's why they want your resume. That's why they want professional letters of recommendation. That's why they might want topical essays. Can that student take this training that they're going to receive and go out into the world and succeed professionally in any field, in whatever field they want? So there's the professional success and the academic success. But the other part of all of this is, can they elevate the academic and professional success of others? So that's where some of those distinct elements that come forward in a personal statement, that come out in a letter of recommendation, can really separate a candidate from someone else. Does the school say, yes, I want this student in the classroom, they can really help others understand this topic so much better because of this experience or this perspective or this contribution that they can make? So the more a student can really showcase that element of it, the stronger, again, their candidacy can be, because all of these pieces come together as schools look at applications to see who it is that's best poised for success and to help others in their classroom. Next slide, please. So we've talked about some of the tips that you can give for your students as they look at graduate school. Stephanie's shared some of the broad opportunities that are possible and the ways that you can advise your students as they think about careers in this broad global marketplace that we have. In a minute, we'll open the floor up to you all, so please feel free to start typing your questions now, whether it's a question you've received from a student that you're struggling with, or you're looking for ideas or opportunities or ways to bring these things into your classroom. But I wanted to share some of APSIA's resources with you in the hopes that they can be useful. We have lots of events online and around the world each year, both that we run and through our member schools, all of which you can find at the apsia.org/events page. I mentioned our fellowships and scholarships directory, and students can filter by the kinds of experiences they're looking for, citizenship, and a few other criteria. So there's some interesting opportunities there that they may not have been aware of. All of our schools have profiles on our website, so if students really aren't sure where to begin, whether they're interested in international business, international law, human rights, education, defense, diplomacy, whatever it is, all of those different opportunities can be explained through the graduate school profiles we have, as well as the career guide that Stephanie mentioned. We pump out a lot of content through social media, on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. We regularly share fellowship and internship opportunities, different ways that your students can get involved, can get training wherever they are within the world, and can start to tap into these different opportunities and build their skill sets to be competitive. And we also share some alumni stories and other ways to get students thinking about all of these different possibilities. And you'll see that on our Instagram page, you'll see that on our website, and when we can, we'll also do that on YouTube. So for the final slide, I just wanted to share with you some of the upcoming opportunities for you and your students, and we hope that you'll be able to share these with them and to join us where possible. As I mentioned, we do events around the world each year that give students a great chance to connect personally with schools, to start to tell their story, and to really do some of that discernment around what sorts of things are going to be the right fit for them. Our first event of the year will be online, July 25th. We'll then be in Atlanta, Toronto, New York, and DC in September. And then in November, we'll be in Tokyo, Hong Kong, and Seoul, whether you have students there or perhaps students studying abroad. And then for students in any other part of the globe, we'll again be online in November. So this is a great chance for schools and students to connect, and for students to go beyond what some brochure says and get to a feeling of which programs are right for them. We also do a presentation on best practices in applying to graduate school that's student focused. We do one once a month, and the next one is actually tomorrow. We're also always happy to come to your campus or beam into your campus to do a special presentation specifically for your students and colleagues. We'll be on the ground in Los Angeles for any of you in Southern California. We have a workshop on May 1st that will be at the University of Southern California, but we will be there for several days. So if any of you are in the greater LA area and would like us to come by to talk to you, your fellow advisors, or your students, please let me know and we'll see what we can work out. And finally, APSIA is currently looking for its fall communications and marketing intern. And as of yesterday, we also extended the deadline for our summer communications and marketing intern. So if you have a great student who would love to work with us, we would be interested in seeing their application. They can be here in Washington or anywhere within the US. And we do offer a modest stipend as a way to help make this as accessible as we can to different kinds of students. The summer application deadline is now April 19th, and the fall deadline is July 11th. So if you have great students, please, please, please flag that for them and share them with us. So now we have the opportunity to turn to you and see what we can answer about your different questions and opportunities. Kristen asks, are there job sites you recommend students use for international opportunities? Stephanie, do you have any great go-to sites for opportunities outside the US?
Yes, one of the best ones that we use, and sometimes some career services offices might have subscriptions to this one, is called Going Global. I'm going to put the link in the chat box. And so that's a great site for students to consider. They have opportunities in all sectors, private sector as well as the nonprofit sector, and places around the world. And so, like I said, it's a subscription-based site, and there are a lot of times your career services may already have a subscription to that site. So your students should be able to access it through that way. There's another link that I'm trying to find, used to be on the Department of State's website, that had links to international organization type jobs. I'm trying to find that right now. But that's one opportunity. Of course, anything that you're related to Department of State or Foreign Service work or USAID, you can certainly look for any federal opportunities on usajobs.gov. Those are the things that come to mind right now. Let me see if I can find this one link. Passport careers.
I know about are sector-based too. There's groups like DevX, which is for
international development
careers. This is for students slightly older than undergrads, but the Intelligence and National Security Alliance, INSA, has a lot of opportunities in those two fields. So a lot of the things that I've seen are more sector-based than solely based in the US or outside.
Right.
Jennifer asked if there are resources you recommend for students who are looking to go to graduate school abroad. And obviously I recommend the APSIA website with all of our profiles. But are there, noting that I'm extremely biased, Stephanie, are there other resources that you have turned to?
Well, generally, if there's a particular country that they're interested in, I normally ask them to start there, or also just to talk to somebody in their international education office. What schools or what international institutions does your school partner with? Do you have study abroad programs with? That as a starting point, just to learn about some of the organization or some of the potential schools that you might want to research more about. But APSIA is a great resource. It's one of the best resources I can think of for international relations and international global schools. I think that's the one that I really think about the most. I'm not aware of others.
We also have counterparts. So we're the Association for Graduate Schools of International Affairs. There are associations for graduate schools of business, schools of public policy, schools of public management, some of which have members outside of the US. And so that can also be a good place for students to turn if they're interested in a particular sector. So, and then just searching, excluding the US and looking at all of the other opportunities. Marcus wondered whether we had partnerships with third-party study abroad providers. Formal partnerships, no. We certainly work with groups like Diversity Abroad. It has a ton of great resources in how students can afford to go abroad and pay for those kinds of experiences. We have nice relationships with plenty of other groups, but nothing formal. And it looks like Elizabeth was recommending Passport Careers as another site for jobs outside of the United States.
Right. Yeah, they have an international listing of careers as well. They do.
There are also some wonderful virtual opportunities for students who may not be able to afford to go, or in some cases are a little nervous about going. Two that I always like to flag. One is the Virtual Student Foreign Service, the VSFS, which enables students anywhere in the United States or any US citizen to have internship opportunities with federal agencies doing unclassified work from the comfort of their jammies in their dorm room. And usually that process opens in July of each year, but I do know that they're encouraging students to get registered on USA Jobs now so that when those opportunities open, the students are ready to jump in and apply. But it's a range of agencies. It's the Foreign Agriculture Service, it might be the State Department, Defense, AID, lots and lots of different organizations within the federal system. And so students can virtually intern for any of those. Another really good one is the UN Volunteer Group. And I believe their website is just unv.org. And these are virtual, often short-term internship opportunities, working with different UN agencies or nonprofits as a way to really give students a hands-on, tangible project that they can deliver. So it can lead back to some of those skills that Stephanie was talking about as well, and in terms of getting them some practical experience, but without having to leave their opportunity. UNV is a mix. There is a whole page of specific online opportunities as well as fieldwork through UNV.
There's another site, I referenced it a little bit in my talk just about in terms of fellowships that you might want to encourage students to look at for the variety of different fellowships that may offer internship opportunities or money for study abroad or even money for graduate school. It's a site called ProFellow. They even often offer opportunities for early career, mid-career professionals who may be looking for a fellowship to better engage in their work. And so that's another resource for finding funding to pay for these opportunities and experiences.
Stephanie, I'm not sure about your students, but a lot of the students I meet are very ambitious and assume that they will be able to get positions, let's say with the United Nations, straight out of an undergraduate degree. And you're laughing because you know where this question is going. Do you have advice for those very well-meaning students for whom that's all that they know at this time, and how they can channel that well-meaning interest into some practical next steps?
So one of the first questions I ask them when they tell me that they want to work for the UN, I ask them, well, what problem are you trying to solve? Just to find out if it's really the UN that they want to work for, if it's just a particular issue that they're passion around. So it's what problem are you trying to solve? And then the second thing is, well, what do you bring to that organization? And so that's when we start to have that conversation about skills and experience and what makes you competitive. So a lot of the things that I've referenced earlier, what have you done or what are you planning to do while you're in college? And so here at the Nunn School, we start with our undergraduates in our first year. We have a careers course that they're required to take, which introduces them to the range of different industries and opportunities that they can pursue before they graduate. So that when they do graduate, they can pursue these opportunities full time. And they may or may not be the United Nations, which is something that most people can't get into right out of college. But these different types of industries, these different types of organizations that you can get internship experience with, or might even be your first destination, so that after you've had 2 or 3 years of experience, and maybe after you've gone to graduate school, you might be better qualified for a position with the United Nations or with NATO or with any of these other multilateral organizations than you were when you first started out of undergrad. So we start with our first year careers class, but certainly I would advise you to talk to students just about what it is that they're really trying to get at, and then how can they make themselves competitive. So it would be the co-curricular activities, it would be the leadership, it would be the study abroad, and then helping them find the ways to fund that as well, making sure that they're able to participate.
Other questions that you often get from students that you would love to hear the wisdom of, not just Stephanie and I, but all of the folks on the line today? I will note that one thing the UN I think does fairly well is explain their different job levels. So you can take that student and show them, you're applying for an entry-level position, but that still requires a master's and 5 years experience and fluency in 3 languages. So let's start planning down the line for when you want to be ready for that job.
Right. So yeah.
And Stephanie, you've talked a little bit about this with your example of the young woman who works for the city of Atlanta, but knowing how mixed the local and the global are these days, are there experiences you're seeing on the ground in Atlanta that are good for giving a global skill set for any sector?
So Atlanta is a little special in that we have a really huge consular corps here. And because of that, and we just had a meeting with information session with a couple of our alumni who work for the British Consul General and for the Canadian Consul General's office here in Atlanta. But just discussing, working for a consular office or maybe an embassy, if that's near you, is an opportunity, even if you're not a citizen of that country. So that was something that was a surprise to some of our students that, being Americans, could they work in a consular office? And the answer is yes. So there are opportunities to pursue that that are, I think, unique to Atlanta, but there are consular offices all around this country. And then also here in Atlanta, we have a growing technology sector. And a lot of these organizations have offices here in Atlanta, and some of our students are using them as springboards to opportunities abroad. So like Facebook has a presence here, Google has a presence here, Amazon has an increasing presence here, and I was telling you earlier that we have an alumnus who actually just moved to Singapore, working with Amazon's public policy outfit there, but he started at the Amazon office in Washington, D.C. And so even though they might start with the company domestically, there are opportunities to take your career abroad. So even if they aren't able to start abroad initially, it's not something that they want to close the door on. So it's something that, depending on where you might work, there might be opportunities to take your experience abroad once you've gotten on board at that organization.
And we see a lot of students do that. They start in their home country, whatever it is, and then they get the chance to move around to lots of different places.
Right. Exactly.
We're closing in on 3 o'clock, so if you have any other last-minute burning questions, please feel free to share them now. Stephanie, if you'll please go back one slide, you'll also see my email address. So if there's something you think about later that you would like to ask about, I'm happy to pass your question on to Stephanie or make up an answer myself. And you can also see lots of other ways to stay engaged with us. I hope that you'll share the information we have with friends and colleagues. We are here to be as helpful as we can to make it easy for you and your students to connect with opportunities worldwide. So seeing that no one else is typing, I'm going to wrap up with a huge thank you to Stephanie for sharing all of her wisdom with us today and her experience working with students and helping them think about the way the world is moving and the way their careers can be moving and how they can capitalize on all of the great potential that's out there. And I want to thank all of you for being a part of this conversation. And I look forward to staying in touch with you and to seeing hopefully many of your students at APSIA events in the future, as well as you and your colleagues. Please let us know how we can be of help. And we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.